As a high ticket closer, if you've ever thought to yourself, I'm working a lot of hours, why am I not making the money I want to be making? I hit $2,000 in commissions in my first month in sales, over $8,000 in my third month, $15,000 in my seventh month, $23,000 in my 11th month, and $36,000 a month in commissions in my 12th month in sales. Here's the three things I really focus on to make that happen when everyone else is focusing on everything else, taking the longer and harder route. Pause. Alex Hormozy said, real talk, if you're working all the time and not seeing progress, you're simply working on the wrong things. And that's what I see a lot when I'm seeing the different high ticket closers, salespeople, whatever you want to call yourself, is they're focusing simply on the wrong things. And sales is just like business, because the thing with business, as Hormozy talks about, is that there's something called the biggest constraint in the business. Meaning that in order for the business to grow, there's simply usually the biggest roadblock blocking them from being able to scale. For example, it could be the lack of leads. It could be that their close rate's too low. It could be their client delivery systems is not simply dialed in. And because of that, it's halting the business from being able to grow. Now, us as sales professionals, and we are professionals, when we look at our sales numbers, when we look at our sales and our commissions, we want to look at that as if that's your own individual little business, because it kind of is. So when we're looking at that, in order to identify the biggest constraint in our sales, then we need different things in order to identify that. And typically what I found is this. The three things I really focus on is number one, data, number two, activity, and number three, process. So let's go into data first, because these things are very boring, which is not a lot of people are talking about it in the industry, which is why a lot of people, it takes them longer for them to get the results that they want in the high ticket closing industry. So number one is data. You need to understand your data, meaning that, hey, what's the biggest thing that you're losing the most commissions to? What's the biggest thing that's holding you back from getting to the sales numbers that you want in the biggest amount possible? So in order to identify that, what do we got to do? We need to track our data. So what I did was I tracked my data using a data tracker, and I've tried different trackers out there. I tried different spreadsheets. I tried different softwares. I paid for them, and pretty much every single one of them simply didn't get the job done as I needed to get, meaning that they didn't really track the data I needed to track in order to properly problem solve my sales and identify the biggest constraint in my sales and do all the functions I need to do. So I built out my own data tracker, and this made sense to me because obviously I'm Asian and numbers, math is our thing, right? And second thing is, when I was in the military, we used spreadsheets and data was very important when I was in the military. So I served in the Korean military, and so we used and looked at data trackers and spreadsheets all the time, and we identified different things. And also, when I was DM setting, because at one point I was DM setting for a guy, and it was basically, the offer was interesting because it was typical coach offers, where it was helping coaching businesses scale, but with a very particular mechanism, which was by using DM conversations, how to get better at messenger conversations to book more sales calls to help their coaching businesses grow. And in the process of that, data was a very big thing that the business owner really harped on. His name is Miles. Shout out to Miles. And so we call it data-driven decisions. Because what happened there was a lot of coaches, in order to scale, they're like, man, why am I not booking enough sales calls? Why isn't my business growing to 10, 20, 30K a month? And then when we actually went into asking, hey, how many messenger conversations are you having each week? Or how many sales calls are you having each week? They're like one. Okay. And how many people are you reaching out to book the sales call? They're like, maybe 1 to 2 a week. So when we look at the sheer numbers, it makes total sense that coach in particular is not growing their business. Because if you're reaching out to 1 to 2 people a week and having one sales call a week, how are you supposed to get to your goal? And which person is going to have a higher chance, probability of getting to their goal? The person reaching out to more people or less people? It's quite simple, right? So, and when I'm talking to salespeople also, when I'm talking to them is very apparent. Because, for example, when I'm asking them, hey, what's the biggest objection that you're losing the most sales to? Because I will often have people that, hey, can we role play partner objections? Can I work on partner objections? It's like, yeah, we could. So what's the biggest objection you're losing the most sales to? They're like, I don't think it's partner. I think it's think about it. Okay, so think about objections. How many sales a week are losing out? So most people don't even know how many on average. So we kind of have to guess. But they'll be like, I think maybe 9 or 10. Okay, how many a week are losing to partner objection? Oh, not many, maybe like 1 or 2. So why are we working on partner objections? So unless you're overcoming every single think about objection or at a very high percentage to the point where it's law of diminishing returns, then might as well work on the think about objections, right? Because let's look at this. Let's say you become the master partner objection handler ever. You're a fucking beast. The maximum you could overcome is maybe 2 a week. It says 2 extra sales per week. Now, let's say you become half decent at overcoming think about objections. Then you could overcome maybe, let's say like 3 or 4, maybe 5 a week from think about objections. So which one do you think objectively should you work on first? Exactly, the think about objection. So this is the thing that we got to analyze. So when I was full-time selling and I was analyzing my data, this is exactly what was happening. So I looked at the different objections because you want to track your objections. So that's step number 1. You got to have a tracker, track your different objections. What are the different objections you're getting? Okay, and how many of those objections are actually overcoming? So let's look at your Monday to Friday. And let's say you're getting 10 think about objections per week and you're overcoming about 1 to 2 of those. You can't overcome every single one unless you're Jesus, but there's maybe at least like 3 or 4 a week that you could overcome. So there's that delta. And let's say you make $500 per commission. That's about $2K a week, about $8K a month, about $96,000 a year that you're losing out on from think about objections. So let's identify that first instead of the partner objections or like a rare occasion. Hey, I got this weird objection that I never get. Well, let's discard that. Let's just ignore that. And that's exactly what I did. Partner objections, I rarely got those. I'd get like maybe 1 or 2 a week. I knew the basics of how to handle partner objections, but I didn't even worry about it. I didn't practice partner objections. I rarely did. I only worked on, okay, so I'm getting think about objections and logistical money objections. For me, that was the biggest one, logistical money. Meaning that the person said they want to do it, but they don't have the money to be able to move forward. So with those people, what I did was, okay, so I could work on partner or think about it, yes, over time, but that's going to take time. So might as well, let me just focus on helping people that wanted to do it, but they don't have the money to get the money together to actually move forward. So that's exactly what I did. On the call, I built extra urgency. I held them accountable, and I asked them, hey, what could you do to get the money together? Okay, what if you did this? What if you did that? What if you did this? Okay, your sister, could you call her right now? Is she around the house right now? And I had them do that. And because of that, I got more extra sales through that. So instead of me taking forever to work on think about objective, because skill set takes time, I was able to turn those no sales into follow-up sales. Maybe not even on that call particularly, but a day later, week later, month later, a year later, which sounds like a lot of work, which sounds like that's too long, but it compounds, it snowballs. Because imagine if you did that with every single lead. It compounds. Because really a dangerous place to be at as a sales professional is just guessing and going by the feels. Yes, our job is to get prospects into an emotional state so they make a buying decision and action on their goals. But when we're problem solving on sales, then we want to, as objectively as possible, put emotions to the side or think only with logic. And it's a paradox, I know, because it's, you're in an emotional state all the time. So when you're looking at your numbers, you're like, oh, my numbers are dropping. I think they're dropping, and you don't even know. And then now you're in a chaotic state, and now you're just making decisions out of panic. You don't want that. We do not want that. So when we're looking at our numbers as objective as possible, yes, I get it. We're human beings. So yes, emotions are involved, but as objectively as possible. So what the data tracker does, when you're looking at your numbers, it helps you. It almost forces you to go into the logic brain, which really helps you, which is what you want. Also, another biggest thing that I see when I'm breaking down these numbers with, for example, our members in the real sales system community, we break down the numbers. The biggest thing, the biggest lowest hanging fruit is the slot utilization rate. So what's the slot utilization rate? Let's say you have 50 hours per week available to working for easy math, and you have 20 sales calls booked on the calendar, and you have 10 showed up. Okay. Now your show up rate is 50%, right? 10 showed up out of 20 calls. However, your slot utilization rate is 20% because only 10 showed up out of 50 hours a week that you have available right there. So imagine you're utilizing 10 hours, you're 10% of your sales calendar, which is your lifeblood, which is your money-making machine. Out of that, only 10% is utilized. That is a very dangerous place to be at. You want to be at the opposite place. My slot utilization was about 80 to 90% once I got to optimize it. And because I don't think I was the best at sales on the sales team I was previously selling at. I was selling for 7th level, where literally the best of the best, the most skilled sales team, even the CEO said it, and he's been through different sales teams, like a lot of different sales teams, managed and trained different sales teams he's seen. He said, this is the most skilled sales team I've ever seen, about 15 to 20 all-star closers, okay? Now, it was my first full year in sales, and I became number 2 out of the 15 to 20 Ulster closers. And I don't think I was the most skilled per se. I don't think I was, right? I didn't have the best tonality. Yes, I'm better than most people. I didn't have the best objection handling skills. I rarely practice objection handling. With the questions, I could have asked better questions. But I believe the reason, like one of the biggest reasons why, is because my slot utilization rate was just way higher than everyone else. Because everyone else's slot utilization was around like 30 to 40, maybe 50%. Mine was 80 to 90%. So even if your close rate's lower, or even if you're less skilled, who has a better possibility? You just have more at bats. I'm just talking to more people in the same amount of time I'm sitting on my desk anyway. Because the thing is this, we can only pack up a limited amount of leads into our calendar, right? So let's take that example. Let's say you have 20 sales calls booked on the calendar, okay? And about 10 show up and you're closing 3, which is 30% close rate. Okay, which is not like crazy good, which is not crazy terrible. It's pretty good, right? So 30%, let's say you make $500 per sale commission. So that means 500 times 3, you're making 1.5K a week, $6,000 per month. Let's say you want to make $15,000 per month. In order to do that, you have to basically 2.5 times your close rate, right? Because you have to make like 30 sales per month from what you're closing. So let's say you make like 3 sales per week, then you're doing like 12 sales per month. You have to 2.5x your sales, 2.5x your close rate. For most people, I don't care despite what sales gurus tell you, it's very, very, very difficult to 2.5x your close rate in a month overnight, even after 90 days. I'm not saying it's impossible, very, very difficult. Because what Matt Ryder says, and as Matt Ryder is someone who got to 100K a month in commissions after about 10 to 12 years. It took him that long to get there. Being good at sales is hard, and getting better at sales takes time. And this is what most people in the industry just will not tell you, because that's just how it is. And so I just focus on these things let's look at it this way. Let's say you have 2.5x the number of sales calls that you're actually talking to each week. So instead of talking to 10 a week, you're talking to 25 leads a week. Okay? That's 25 leads a week. It's not crazy amount of work. It's 25 hours per week, right? If we actually look at that, let's say 1 sales call per hour, right? So might as well just do that, because even if you didn't get any better sales, you just increase the at-bats, increase the number of people that you're talking to, then you just have a lot higher possibility of getting to your goal of the $15,000 a month, for example. Now, how do we do that? Because we're not going to magically appear sales calls out of the sky and make it rain, but we got to do other things, which brings us to the next point, which is number 2, activity. Another thing Alex Hormozi said is, in order to get to your goal, there's 3 steps in order to get there, which is number 1, do more. Number 2, do it better. Number 3, do something different. What does that mean? In the beginning, people try to skip to step 2 or step 3 all the way right after immediately. Meaning that they try to find hey, what's a better way of getting the script? What's the new way of getting the script? Yes, because as human beings, something new, something different, that catches your eyes, right? It's just how it is. However, in the beginning, just by doing more, you'll have a better possibility. As an example, what is activity? Activity simply means that you're talking to more people. How do we do that if we only have a finite amount of sales calls that are booked in our calendar? Well, you got to go make shit happen. How? You go into your CRM and you start talking to people. Crazy concept, I know. Now, when we look at that in the CRM, you definitely have opportunities. Because, for example, if you have 20 calls booked on your calendar each week and 10 show up, that's 10 leads that did not show up. So what are you doing with those people? Just letting them go to waste? Because guess what? Your business that you sell for, they didn't just magically make the sales calls hop out of thin air. It came from somewhere. Guess what? They spend money to do that. And on average in the industry, depending on the offer, obviously, but it could be anywhere between $250 to $500 per book call. So if you do the math, that's about $2,500 a week to about $5,000 or whatever the thing is, whatever the math is, per week. That the business is basically wasting money. So that's for the business, but what's that good for you? Well, if you're not talking to anybody during that time, what are you doing? Whenever you get a no-show or an empty space on the calendar, what are you doing? Are you watching YouTube? Are you going on random walks? Are you doing random role plays with your sales homie? Or are you actually going into your CRM, talking to leads, selling, and making shit happen. And I know it may not be your fault because in the industry, when you first get in, it's like high ticket closing, remote closing, sideways closing, whatever fancy name they slap on these days. When you first got in, the promise is that, hey, work from the beach, have your pajamas on, talk to 3 warm leads a day. You just answer a few questions. You can master sales within 90 days. You'll make 10 grand, 20 grand a month. Because that was the promise, your expectation was that, oh, it's going to be easy. It's going to be quick. I get it. I get it. Right? Because that's what you're told. But that's not how sales works. Because high ticket closing, or whatever you want to call it, is sales. And guess what? We're sales professionals. It is our profession. And until we treat it as a profession, our prospects don't treat us as a professional. That's just how it works. So how do we treat it as a profession? When you're working, you're working. Crazy concept. So let's say you have 8 hours allocated per day. Let's say you're working from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Okay, 8 hours allocated per day. During the time, if they no-showed, you could go on a walk, yeah, but how are you making money during that time? No. When you're watching YouTube videos, how much money are you making during that time? None. When you're doing random role plays, how much money are you making during that time? None. And you may be saying, yeah, but by fixing my script and by doing role plays, I'm getting better. You can do that outside of your selling hours. When you work, you work. When you sell, you sell. That's what you want to do. Because now you're getting out of the flow. You're taking a sales call, and now you're doing random role plays, and then it's just ineffective. Why not talk to leads in real life scenario? Because role plays are fake anyway. Yeah, you can try to artificially manufacture the best case scenario possible, yes, but when you talk to actual leads, now you have something called reference experiences, meaning that you're in that moment and some scenario happens that you've never faced before, or you faced again, and you try something to actually overcome it this time. That's what you can do. So not only do you have a higher possibility of making more money during that time, now you're also getting better. So let's say, for example, if you're talking to 2 leads a day, because that's what the amount of sales calls booked and that's what your show up rate is, you talk to 2 leads a day, versus you have the 2 leads a day that showed up from the booked inbound call, versus, and also on top of that, you go talk to leads from your CRM, people that no-showed, people who didn't buy, so on and so forth. And during the time you have the no-show, the other 6 hours of the day, you talk to them. Now you're talking to like 8, 10 leads a day. So which person is going to have a higher possibility of getting better at sales and making more money and being on the top of the leaderboard and getting on better offers because of the track record? Pretty self-explanatory. So what do we do? When you go into your CRM, something that Matt Ryder told me, as a sales professional, you want to be in your CRM all day. All day. Because how else are we going to make money? So during that time, you go call people that booked the call, but they didn't show up. You call them. And then you sell them on the spot. Here's what you do. When you call them, they pick up. And then it's like, hey, Jack, it's just Brian from XYZ company, man. Yeah, we had a call book yesterday, or we just had a call book, but you didn't show up. Did something happen, or what ended up happening? And they're like, oh, sorry, like I forgot it. Yeah, it totally happens. Like it happens, man. But like, have you already found what you're looking for, or are you still looking? I'm still looking. Okay. And do you know what you're looking for when it comes to what you want out of a business? Let's say you sold biz up. And they're like, yeah, I want to make more money. Okay, cool. And then you take them to all the way to the script. Okay. But your first option is not to book the call. Let me explain. The first option is to actually sell them. What you do is you take them all the way down to the sales script, you pitch, you drop the price, and if they have objections, you handle the objections on the call, on the spot. That's your number one option. What a lot of people do is when they call them, they just try to book them in for the next day. If they picked up, they just sell them. What's stopping you? Literally nothing. Right? Just sell them on the spot. Now, if they're so ice cold, they have no idea what's going on, then yeah, you can actually triage them and then find the problem, book them for the next day, send them homework material that's going to give them a better idea of the client cases, what you guys do, so on and so forth. Yes, but in most cases, you don't have to do that. When Matt was actually going into sales again to see what's going on in the different accounts at his agency, that's exactly what he did. He sold, the first week he went in, he sold 7 30K packages just over the phone. No Zoom calls, just the moment they picked up, he just sold them. Right? So that's 210K revenue generated in 1 week by just calling them and just selling them on the spot. So there's no barriers. Do not put artificial barriers in front of it. You can just stop stopping. Just go for it. Just go all the way if you can. Now, if you don't have the time or they don't have the time, yes, like you just want to quickly triage them and book them for either later that day, quickest time frame possible, or the day after and work your way backwards. That's what you want to do. Or also, call people that were kind of on the fence. that they were interested, they wanted to do it, they had some concerns, you ran out of time to objection handle, call those people again. They didn't give up, so why should you give up? So call those people again, overcome their concerns, help them overcome their concerns together, and then turn that into a follow-up sale. People are going to have concerns. It's just sales. Yeah, you can try to prevent it as much as possible, but it will happen. So why not help them overcome it? And also you can call your client list, people you've already sold, or people that the business sold, right? Maybe previous reps that left, or reps, the clients that haven't been contacted for a while. You can call them up, see what's going on, and then if they need more help, you can upsell them to a higher end package, more expensive stuff. Or if you don't have that, then you can just renew them, sell them a renewal package, like keep going on. Or you can ask for referrals while you're still at it. And that's exactly what I did. That was literally my bread and butter. When I was full-time selling, I would call the client list, especially expiring client list. That was the best one because they're wondering, okay, they've had some, maybe some success, some situations, experience in the program, and then now they're about to expire. They're like, what should I do after I expire? You can call them up. Hey man, what's going on? Yeah, how's the program going? Yeah, like let's start with some wins. What are some wins you've gotten out of it? All right, cool. What's the next goal you want to get to? Because everyone wants to get to the next goal. They don't want to settle, right? So, okay, what's stopping you from getting there now? And you find the problem. Okay, cool. And then you take them through the process. Obviously, it's like a short summary of the whole process. They have a process for it. After that, then if it makes sense, you opt for them. And you know what a lot of advanced clients do is they actually go into XYZ higher end program because we help you fix that higher quality problem. Doing this and this and this. Want me to walk you through it? All right, cool. This is what we do. This is how much it costs. Want to do it? And after that, if they buy, they buy. If they have objections, you try to handle that, right? So you do that and ask for referrals. Every person you sold, ask them for referrals. I still do that to this day. People in my real sales system community, I still ask them for referrals. Hey man, who do you know? Who do you know? You gotta know somebody. Come on now. You ask them for referrals, and that's how you get more sales calls booked in your calendar. And the thing with referrals is that they're a lot warmer leads because they've heard great things from the people they got referred by. And also, a lot of times, they usually already know the price already. And they still either book the call with you, they still want to talk to you. I'm not saying they're all going to be laydowns, but a lot more laydowns than a completely cold lead. Third step is process. What is process? Okay, so we went from do more, now we get to make it better and do something different, right? So how you build out different process is that you set a hypothesis. Best case scenario is that you just model after what's working already. So in your current company right now, if you have other reps and they're doing something very successfully, then just model after that process. Whether it be a show up rate confirmation process, an upsell process, follow process, whatever it may be. Whether in your current company or people in other companies, or it doesn't have to be me, right? Or like trainers or whatever it may be. Like follow that, model after that, and follow that. And implement it for what you sell on your offer. And you go through that, and then what you do is you track your data, going back to the first step, and you track your data meticulously, and you monitor it, and then you stress test it. Stress test it, meaning that you put enough data through a system. In sales, typically 20 or 30 different instances is good. Let's say you build out a show-up rate process to increase your show-up rate. Okay, I think if I send this email with this text, I think it'll increase my show-up rate. Now, a hypothesis isn't something that means that, hey, you will increase your show-up rate, you will make more sales, but it's like, hey, I think it might. So you don't get your hopes up, but it's almost having a genuine curiosity like a scientist, right? Hey, I think if I did, put these two things together, I think, it'll make the light bulb glow. So you do that. You build out a process, you put like 20, 30 different leads, book calls, and then you track the show-up rate and compare from the week before and after. The reason why you want to do it around 20 or 30, there's no right or wrong answer for it, but about like 5 to 10 is too little of a data set, meaning that it's not enough. Because when you first do it, you're trying to get a hang of it, and you just need more data points in order to actually identify what's working or not. So you do that. After the 20 or 30, you track your data, you monitor data. What did it do to the show-up rate? Okay, it actually increased it. Actually decreased it. So what am I going to do? Let me try a different thing. Just iterate the process. So this is what was happening when I was trying to build out my show-up rate process at my last company. The show-up rate, for me personally, it was hovering between 30 to 50%, which was also about the team's average. Horrible. So what I did was, hey, I could try to get better objection handling, and I am, but that's going to take time. So what do I got to do? If I just talk to more people, even if I'm not as good at sales, I could increase my commissions, I could increase my sales. So that's what I did. I started testing different show-up rate processes. So I tried texting them too often and calling them and emailing them, because I think, hey, I think these people are forgetting, so let me just kind of confirm them more. And then what that did was now it kind of increased and then started going down because people are getting pissed off. They're like, hey, why are you texting me so often? I'll be there. It's fine. I'll chill down. Okay, all right, cool. I toned down a little bit. And then what happened was I toned down too much to the point where people are forgetting. I didn't text them at all. And then now people are also not showing up. So what I did was, okay, eventually I found a sweet spot where I took my show rate from like 30 to 40% to about 70%, 65 to 70. So about like more than doubled in that case, right? Almost doubles. So during that time, I was like, oh, this is the process. Now this works. So that was the show rate process. What I also did was I realized that I was only relying on front-end sales. And we had different packages at my last company. We had the 3K offer, we had a 10K offer, we also had a 16 to 18K offer, depending on the payment plan. And during that, I'm like, okay, I'm usually selling people to the 10K, but what about the 18K? I'm not selling those people. So what I did was, well, I'm making about however many sales I was making during the time, right? Like 20 or 30 sales, whatever it was. And I'm only ascending about 1 to 2 people to the upsell, only because they asked me first or it just happened by luck. But what if I took a more proactive approach to it? So what I did was I tried testing different things. I couldn't figure something out. So what I did was I sought out someone that specialized in that. Because a problem that I identified during the process of me trying to upsell more people was that I was trying to upsell people, but people just didn't want to upgrade. And at first I thought it was my sales ability. I was like, oh, I just got to get better at like being more persuasive and handling different objections. But the problem I identified was actually deeper in the client delivery system. They didn't want to upgrade. And so I'm like, okay, so that's not my job. That's not my fault, but it still affects me. Therefore, it is my responsibility to fix it. So what a lot of salespeople do is like, oh, that's none of my business. Like client delivery team, yada, yada, whatever. But still, do you want to have more pride or do you want to have more money in your bank account? For me, it was the latter. So I was like, at that point, okay, so what do I got to do? So I found someone that specialized in client delivery system and client experience. So I went to that person, hey, listen, and they help business owners, mind you. So I'm not even a business owner. It's not even my job. So I'm like, hey, listen, I'm not a business owner, but I'm a salesperson. I want to upsell more people, and I think you can help me. How much do you charge? And it's like $1K an hour. I was like, done. Send me invoice. I sent him the money. 16 digits. Here you go. Boom. I paid. We hopped on a call, and then we go to different. Okay, here's what you got to do. Here's what you can do. Here's what we want for. Okay, da 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 da. Here's what you got to do. All right, cool. Now a lot of those were client delivery team's job, but how can I mold it to what I do? Because I obviously have sales calls and as a salesperson. So I just molded it for my situation. I started testing different things. So what happened was I went from making about like 1 to 2 upsells a month to about 5 to 8 upsells a month, depending on the month, right? The most upsells I've done, I think, was like 12 upsells a month or something like that. So basically from that, because I realized I was losing about like $5,000 to $8,000 a month from not doing upsells properly. And so when I did that, that's another stream of commissions, right? That I added to my total commissions. So I started making about like an extra, like, depending on the month, like about like $5K a month extra in commissions just from upsells and referrals on top of the front end sales I'm making, on top of the one call closes, on top of the follow-up sales I was doing, right? Another example is I realized that I was losing out on follow-up sales, right? I'd have a call, then I was able to close them, and I'd get frustrated. Then I was like, okay, well, the sale's not over. How can I have an effective follow-up process? So what I did was I sought out someone that specialized in email copywriting because I'm like, I think I could send out email follow-up emails, and I'm going to call them. I'm not just going to rely on the emails. I'm going to call them, but I think the emails could help as well. So I sought out someone that was an incredible email copywriter. And he's wrote emails for people like Dan Locke and like really big names in the space, help them really grow. It's like, okay, so how much do you charge? and it came out to like 1.7K US dollars an hour. I was like, all right, cool. Send me an invoice. I pay. Again, I don't even hop on a sales call with these people. I'm like, okay, over DMs, send me invoice, done. I don't even give these people objections because I ain't got time to fuck around, right? So, okay, boom. Book a session as soon as possible. All right, cool. Here's the situation. I think you could send out these kind of emails. And then he and I worked together on that. I think I could say this. And he helped me tweak it. He helped me give me a framework. I was like, perfect. Da 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 da. I get the email sequence together. I put them into my CRM in Close.io. And then I do an automated email sequence. But also, here's a common mistake. And when other people did this in my offer because they kind of they copied my email sequence. But what they didn't do was they didn't call those people. They just relied on the emails. But you're just relying on like, that's not real sales. You're also losing on tons of people because some people just need an edge, like a bit of a nudge on the phone. So that's what I did. I send out the email. Sometimes I get the replies. I call them immediately. It's like, hey man, what's going on? And then I'd answer questions, handle objections. I was able to get more sales through it this way. And I started refining that process. You see how this works?